If you have questions, concerns, and are just lost when it comes to planning for retirement, meet Steve Hoyl and Derek Caldwell of the Hoyl Financial Group. You know, Steve, we've talked about annuities here on the show, about how they are a continuous stream of guaranteed income, month after month, right? It's, in essence, kind of like replacing that paycheck. But at the end of the year, what are the tax implications from annuities? Well, here's Morningstar's Christine Benz.
It gets a little bit complicated depending on the account that you use to fund the annuity. But generally speaking, you'll obtain some tax deferral as long as the funds are inside the annuity. And then you'll owe taxes on any money that hasn't been taxed yet. So if you put pre-tax dollars into an annuity and it makes investment gains, well, all of your withdrawals will be taxable, and they'll be taxable at your ordinary income tax rate. If you've put in some money that has already been taxed, there's what's called an exclusion ratio, meaning that you won't be taxed on those funds again.
So, Steve, when you're funding annuities for clients, how do you decide which money is better? Is it pre-taxed, like IRAs, traditional IRAs, or is it money that's already been taxed?
Well, the best is after tax, money that's been Roth, which means you've wiped out the taxes. So you have tax-free income for the rest of your life. And that's the best money to have. But Jess, most of all, get started. You could fund a pre-tax annuity and eventually Roth those funds. There's some rules we have to take care of, but Roth those, and then you could have tax-free income for the future. But most of all, get started. The procrastination is what wipes people out so much. But, Jess, what's hard about pre-tax dollars is so many people start, when they first start working, they start contributing money to their IRA, contributing money to their 401k, all these different plans, and they get this great tax deduction. But what they don't know is when it comes to retire, that the government is your profit partner. When you take money out, you pay the taxes based at your tax rate. So if you want to get the government out of your pocket, you need to do a Roth conversion and wipe those out and have tax-free income in retirement. The big thing is too, Jess, you can all of a sudden alleviate the Medicare tax. You can possibly alleviate taxes on your Social Security and have tax-free Social Security. Yes, that's exactly what I said. So, Jess, getting those taxes out of the way is everything. It's not what you have in retirement for income. It's what you have after taxes. And that's where the rubber really meets the road. We also, as she talked about, required minimum distributions. What that is, when you all of a sudden have to start taking money out of your retirement, when you get in your early 70s, you have to start taking required minimum distributions. So then again, the government wants their part. They want their taxes. But then we can figure out something really creative to do with those RMDs. Maybe fund some education funds for your grandkids. Maybe do something for your church. Maybe do something for your family. But don't just put that money in your checking account and spend it. Do something meaningful. If you're going to pay the taxes on it, make it work for you. But, that's the big thing, Jess, is having a plan, working the plan, because what that does, it creates options. We're having so many people call us right now with what's going on in the war, with gas prices, all the uncertainty. But I'm going to tell you, our current clients are not calling because they have that added peace of mind. They have that plan. They know it's working for them. They come by, they smile, and we're good, and that's what really matters. But, Jess, there's a lot of uncertainty out there.
Real quick, Steve, for those that are saying, there's just too much going on between the war and between, decisions coming out of Washington and the market, I'm just going to stick my head in the sand, and when things calm down, then I'll start making decisions. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Jess, let me ask you something. Have you been doing that the last 45 years? How's that working out for you? That procrastination kills the future of retirement. It happens 4 or 5 times a year. We have somebody call us on a Friday afternoon about 3 o'clock and says, listen, I've been listening to you for 10 years, or I've been seeing you on the TV, or my neighbors have done business with you. And, I just walked in and told my boss that I was done. Next Tuesday is my last day. What do we need to do? Whoa. Jess, it happens all the time. And, when you have time on your side and you can let that money roll up and grow some, when you have that plan, Jess, what you could do with 3 extra years of letting that bucket of money not just grow for growth, but grow for income. You've heard this for 100 years. The number one fear is running out of money. I disagree. The number one fear is running out of income. Jess, when our clients retire, they sit down. Now, Steve, I got paid every other weekend on Tuesdays. Every other week, every other Tuesday. And I need to make sure that I continue to get paid that way. Well, of course you do. We'll have several different accounts. We'll start setting one up every other week and the other one, 2 weeks down the road. So it's like clockwork, Jess. But the other thing we're going to do is we're going to have this really strong, stellar emergency fund. If the garage door breaks down, if your car's in a wreck, if your air conditioner goes out, if all of a sudden we have a war and gas prices doubled, you're prepared for it.
You're prepared, yeah.
Jess, it's kind of funny. I have to be honest with the listeners. I can remember having twins and what diapers cost and couldn't fill my car up had a minivan, had an ugly green minivan, and it was a lemon, by the way. We won't talk about that today. But I can remember just adding $10 or $20 worth of gas, and back then that bought a lot of gas. But
sure did.
Jess, I have a little bit of fear of, I remember when the Chevettes were out during the Jimmy Carter days and people waited in line for years to get fuel. So I find myself every other day going to fill up, And you used to go by and fill up like that because, like, if I'm going to wash my car, I want it full. It was $4 or $5. Jess, I topped my car off on Monday. It was $23. And I mean, Jess, that's Whataburger for $2. Okay, that's In-N-Out for $4. I was traveling across West Texas, and I fight my weight, but I'm at a really great weight now, and I kind of keep it seriously. So I like to go In-N-Out burger. I stopped at the In-N-Out burger, got a cup of water, had a double meat, single cheese, double onion burger, and then these loaded fries. And I didn't eat a lot of it, but it tasted good. But I ate for $8.68. But you can't have everything. But I'm going to tell you, we're all going to have to cut back a little bit, Jess, when we think of what gas prices are. And I really mean that. You can't have everything in retirement. So I really think that during COVID, families traveled. They jumped in the car and went somewhere. Jess, this summer, families are not going to be able to travel like they were. Cost of it. I mean, it really is.
It's a trickle-down effect of a cost. Plane rides are more expensive right now because of gas and oil, that kind of stuff. Filling up your car costs more. And you're exactly right here. When you're in retirement, yes, while you have these different buckets of money, and yes, while you have, guaranteed income coming in possibly if that's part of your plan, there is also, you still have to budget. It's not just a free-for-all every day. So you may have to start, maybe you don't go out to eat as much. Maybe you don't go golfing as much, whatever it is, to find the balance.
Well, Jess, we were with Christy and Ben's talking about annuities earlier. Annuities are a great way to set up income that's predictable, sustainable, dependable. Every month, you're going to get income for retirement all the way through your retirement. And if something happens to you, we can make that where your spouse has that same income. Well, Steve, that sounds good and everything, but what happens with the buying power? So we would always set up these extra buckets. So we'd have another bucket over here, maybe a small bucket in the market for growth. And then we would have these buckets for income. And then we would do other catch-up buckets. And I used to say 5 or 6 years down the road, we would turn one of those buckets on because you have the same income, but the buying power is 35% less because inflation is what it's eroding that. Well, today, Jess, those buckets, you may need one every 2 years. I was on the way to the office this morning. I saw this Cisco truck at McDonald's, and I don't ever eat at McDonald's, but it was the only thing open, Canyon, Texas, this morning on my way to work. I was run by my parents, and I saw this Cisco truck sitting out at a restaurant right by McDonald's, and I thought, Jess, can you imagine what the cost of goods on that Cisco are going to be a year from now? Hamburger patties. I mean, you just think about the cost of goods, and Jess, it's serious. And I'm going to tell you, this summer, it's going to impact a lot of businesses because people are not going to pack up and go travel. They're going to have what we call a staycation. They're going to stay in their living room. But, then, Jess, you think, what about heating and cooling costs are going to be at home? A lot of new homes don't have windows that you can open and have screens to blow the air through. So I don't know. I just think that as the war continues, we're going to have to think about it. But you know what I know is Americans are some of the smartest, most creative people in the world. We're going to come together. We're going to win. We're going to be the wonderful red, white, and blue. So I don't know about you. I'm so glad to be an American, and I'm so glad to have my kids and my family. And, when you think about money, when you think about retirement, it's really about family. What do you want to do in retirement? Do you want to go to church on Sunday and have your family over for pot roast? Do you want to once a month go a hot dog cookout with your family? Do y'all want to get together in Branson once a year? What do you want to do in your retirement? That's where the rubber really meets the road. Then we have to start looking at how inflation is going to affect that. And we're going to backpedal up to get that number. People come in here, Jess, and all they want to talk about is the numbers. Well, the numbers never lie, and I totally agree with that. But we have to start first about the emotions. What do you want to do in retirement? Do you want to travel all 50 states? Do you want to go to Europe? Do you want a new house? Do you want a new car every 3 years? What do you want? And then we need to figure out what it's going to cost for your retirement, and then be realistic and back up and figure out what those numbers are. But Jess, it's real.
We were just talking about annuities and having that guaranteed income. Well, the sister almost to the guaranteed income is Social Security. A lot of people are thinking, well, it'll be there. It's going to be guaranteed. It's going to be great. Well, the future of Social Security just got worse if the latest projection is correct. There's a new report by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, and they're warning that the program's trust fund will become insolvent by 2032. So that's really 2 years earlier than what they've been predicting. Steve, if that happens, all beneficiaries are going to face an immediate 24% cut in benefits, and that's if Congress fails to act. So since Social Security is a form of guaranteed income, what else can we do to replace these benefits if they are indeed cut?
Well, just as interesting, in my industry for the last 3 years, we have a lot of tools in our toolbox that have said, for example, if Social Security is reduced by 10%, this benefit will kick in. So my industry is already preparing for that. I don't know if you saw in the news in the last 48 hours, but there was someone out there saying, should we lower Social Security to fix the deficit in the government craziness? I absolutely disagree. I'm going to tell you something. People worked hard for that Social Security benefit. They've earned it and they deserve it. I think our government's been very irresponsible over the years with money, and I think that's the problem. But, Jess, I truly believe there will be a reduction in Social Security, and I don't think it's right. I don't know if you remember, but Social Security was never supposed to be taxable either. But, Jess, I think when people have a plan, they work their plan. In our plan, we're going to make sure you have an income bucket to make up for that gap in Social Security, because, Jess, it's real. I mean, it really is. This is my 37th year. Social Security is going to be reduced. It's only been in the last 24 months that I really believe that could happen, because I used to believe the people that voted were the people that would make sure that didn't happen. But I'm not so sure about that anymore, Jess. I'm really not. So I think you have to plan. You have to make sure that you have plenty of income for you and your family to get all the way through retirement, and then really have a strong legacy plan.
If you'd like to sit down with Steve and Derek or a member of the Hoyl Financial Group, visit retiretexasstyle.com.
Investment advice offered through Hoyl Wealth Management, a Texas-registered investment advisor able to provide investment advice in states where it's registered, exempt, or excluded from registration. Content contained herein should not be construed as an offer or solicitation for investment advice or for the purchase or sale of any security, insurance, or other investment product. Investments involve the risk of loss, including possible loss of principal. Please consult with a qualified financial, tax, accounting, or legal professional before implementing any ideas or strategies discussed here. Content provided is obtained from sources believed to be reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to its accuracy or completeness. By contrast, contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities offered through Steve Hoyl, Texas Insurance License 716036. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties. Steve Hoyl is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Steve Hoyl is licensed in your state, please call 806-371-9473.